G'day, I'm David, and this week we're road testing the Toyota Land Cruiser 70 series. It comes in a number of variants, including Workmate and GX and GXL. We have the GXL in the wagon configuration. It has a look of a little bit like an American school bus and would be most at home perhaps on the set of Happy Days. So let's review what's new in 2025 and what's not. It's been a while since we've driven one, so let's do the time walk again. So let's look around the car, but we'll start from the side. It's no longer just flat panels, it has a bit of crease line, but there is a very straightness about them, including the whole structure, but plenty of nice visibility through the windows. The whole length of the car in this, the wagon, is just a smidgen over 4.9 metres, and its height is just a little over 1.9 metres, so immediately it is too high for my local shopping centre. Now, the bigger models, the tray and troop carriers, can have a longer body, which is around 5.3 metres, and a height, which is a bit more, about 2.1, just a bit over. So the height of it, particularly in urban areas, is something you need to look at. The wheels are 16-inch. They're not huge in diameter because they have high-profile tyres, which I personally quite like. It doesn't make for as rougher potential in driving down the road and hitting the bumps. It's not a luxury suspension, but I think this is part of its drive feel. Oh, and by the way, we have mag wheels, but some of the base models are steel rims. It takes a number of features to try and look the part. This has this blacked out, looking like an extension over the wheel, and the protrusion of the blinkers. Now, this car is given to us nice and clean, but we'll open the bonnet in a moment because there are hints that it has been off-road. A few scratches here are part of that.
If you value independent journalism or simply enjoyed the video, please support the channel by hitting like and subscribe.
And the ground clearance, by the way, just before we leave the side, is from 290 to 330, depending on the model, and that's pretty solid, as you can see here. There's, of course, diesel in that. It has the tyre on the back, they say, for easy exit. It also means that it gives you room inside the car as well. The back of the car has French doors, one smaller than the other, rather easy to open here, and a simple latch to open there. Now, years ago when we were road testing the Land Rover Defender, we developed an understanding of describing this as cubby house size. The kids can almost play in there, maybe sit there and play a game of cards or whatever. It's very flat, very open, very easy to get into, and near perfectly square for fitting things in. Being the GXL model, it has carpet here and a number of other features. For example, the windows you can open that will give you flow-through air. Station wagon is not really long enough to think about sleeping in it. You fold those down and they won't be flat. The hooks that it has here, actually it's a new car, so perhaps they're a little stiff, hard to pull up, but they're solid. They're not this little plasticky thing. That will hold a lot of weight with great confidence, and you've got two there. But there's one thing, this is not for a young family. You'll note there is absolutely no anchor points. So if you have a child that's in a seat small enough, a small child, that needs to have an anchor point or a bit at the top to hold it firm, this hasn't got it. There are a couple of compartments here, including the system in case you have a flat tyre, the jack and such. We'll show that in detail. And just to keep you going. That is the water bottle filler for the rear windscreen wiper. There's no power points or things in the back here, so this is not really aimed so much at the stop and camp, but rather to get there as a tour operator or perhaps out on a mining site is where this is particularly focused in its function. Now, I was assuming, of course, that it might have had better speakers. In fact, it has speakers, which for this upmarket model, that's what luxury is all about. It comes in a range of colours, but they insist on giving them trendy, modern, fashionable names. There is Merlot Red and also French Vanilla. And the one that we have here is Sandy Taupe. Now, taupe is a word that means brownish and grey hues to it, but it actually comes from the French word meaning mole. Now, I wouldn't mind if it had some rough and tough names to them, perhaps something like base model mining grey, but I'm not sure I really want to have a colour that comes from the word mole. We're sitting in the back and the front seat is back as far as it would go. That isn't a great luxury for the driver. It's not as if that's an extreme position. I would drive with the seat all the way back to be as much legroom as possible. And so I find that I'm really quite very cramped here. I am sitting up high, but the seat does come up high in front of me. And fortunately, there's not electric seats or anything. There is heaps of room for my feet under there. That would be intolerable if it wasn't. In fact, I don't even think I'd fit in unless, well, I wouldn't, unless I can get my feet under there. So while I have a pocket here, it's certainly very close, and I really don't have much controls at all, and not even vents. So it's not something that I can adjust here to my comfort greatly. And I do have this huge thing in front of me, and it being so close, I'm feeling a little bit of tightness in sitting within this environment. They say, of course, this is a 5-seater. If you sit in the middle here, this is not a 60-40 split. So the person sitting in the middle is actually striding 2 seats. And I'd say the width is not really great. You would be packing in rather tightly. We have here the carpet, thin carpet it is described as, has this rubber-like mat over the top of it. I'm not sure if that's an extra or part of it, but not a bad idea. We've already got a little bit of mud, not that we've been out in the far bush or anything, but rather just picking up kids from school and parking in some somewhat worn out parking spaces. So let's have a look under the bonnet. It has a simple catch here, and it's a once there and once when you put your hands under here, which like a lot of Toyotas is a little. Now this has got to be one of the heaviest bonnets I've ever lifted, and it's almost the case where I need one person to hold it while I find the bracing line. You remember I mentioned that we hadn't as yet taken it off-road. Someone has. Now, this is perhaps the most modern step that this design of this car has taken. This is now a 4-cylinder diesel. Now, I used to have a V8, 4.5 litre V8, and that suited the image quite well. Now, this is a 2.8 litre turbo, both were, but a 2.8 litre 4-cylinder diesel engine. And I've met people that don't want to buy anything but a V8 when it comes to a Land Cruiser. But the reality is quite simple. This has the same kilowatts, about 150. The V8 had 151. Okay, the same. But it has more torque. It has 500 Newton meters of torque, and the old V8 was around the 433. So it's got efficiency, effectiveness, and as I say, it is probably the biggest development that you can see in this vehicle since time immemorial, when it was first released back in 1984. It does come with a 6-speed automatic, but just this year they did bring back a manual. It's only a 5-speed manual, but they brought it back. In this upmarket GXL, it has locked diffs, but they don't come as standard in the other models, although they do come as options. And I would have thought that perhaps they were the type of vehicles that would most appreciate that extra capability in rough four-wheel drive conditions. A number of other models, including the big ones with a troop carrier or other configuration, do have the option of a 2-tank diesel for fuel, 180 or so litres, and obviously that's very important for range. So a relatively modern engine, and certainly one that Toyota uses in a range of other cars such as the Prado. Compared to the V8 that used to be in this 70 series, it is nearly 40% less capacity and, of course, 50% less cylinders. But so what? I know there are those that just love the idea of a V8, but this has the power, the performance, and perhaps a little more efficiency than that older, perhaps more plodding model of engine that was traditional in this vehicle. So does this car give a presence as it comes towards you? Well, it's still very traditional in its shape, although it has grown a bit, obviously, and I think its looks is a little more modern, but still very traditional. It does now have LED lights and daylight running lights with this almost sort of tinsel-y looking bit around the front there. I don't think that's quite consistent with its overall look, but you may or may not wish to see that. A clear grille and obviously a very, very strong bumper bar. And it has a little bit of channels within the bonnet to give it a bit of a view. Now, we said that it has been off-road, although the outside of the car has been cleaned. If you have a look at the snorkel, you'll notice that they haven't quite got to it this side. So here we are in the Toyota Land Cruiser 70 series, and you will note, as I was talking about on the outside, that I shut the door as hard as I thought, given past experience with modern cars, but it wasn't enough. You have to give it a slam. I'll get it going. The immediate thing here, just to get, it does have air conditioning, fairly simplistic stuff, but immediately it feels narrow, it feels tall, and it feels sparse. It has a number of features. It has this just over 6-inch screen in front of me, and I thought, well, that must be a carryover. Apparently it's fairly new, so it's not as if this car has raced into the future. In front of me is analog dials, but with a bit of digital information on the right. And good for perhaps four-wheel driving, 4 little dials across the bottom, which is a volts, water temperature, fuel, and the temperature of the oil. Basic really does come to words. Let's have a look closer at this. The layout in front of me, oh, how long has it been since you've seen sliders, which are a bit stiff, car's a bit new, but to pick the different vents and so on, a bit hot. Certainly no indication of what the actual temperature is, but then again, Toyotas have tended to be a little bit wonky in indicating the temperature. This turns the fan up and down, and I think this is the temperature, which you can, it's got here, a bit hard to see, air conditioner. which we can turn up to high, a push towards modernity. 2 USB-C plugs here. We do have over here, this is it, the one that is an old USB, which is on a sort of a little string thing to hold it, but it's certainly not elegant. We do have a 12 volt as well. We have some things here obviously to do with towing. A number of little compartments which I think are of minimal use. Even putting your keys in there, say to the house, they might easily fall out. Absolutely minimal. As we mentioned when looking into the car, this is the GLX, so it has thin carpet. The size of this cup holder is not very good, and of course if you have something like a dash cam, it is blocked by the plug that goes in there if you put a water bottle in here. We have an old style selecting for high and low range with some symbols on them that really you need to look. Now, I can't really make they look like hieroglyphics to me. I'll have to perhaps take a photo closer and then go and examine it. It's electric windows, whoopee-doo, but I believe the base model may even come with wind-up windows. On the side we do have the diff lock, which you have to push in, and there are options of rear or front and rear together. On the right we have the stalk is the cruise control, that old style that we've seen in a lot of cars, but nonetheless it's very simple and not to be confused with other things. You press the end to start it up and pull it down, and for setting and up for increasing or resuming, and pull it towards you for cancelling. On the right is the fairly simple rear vision mirror adjustments. Thank heavens we're not way back where you used to have to lean outside or at very best had a little handle to struggle with. And there's a switch here for idle up. Typically that's not a choke, it doesn't increase the mixture or anything, but it just does increase the revs, and that might well be used if you're using something like an electric winch and you want to be outside perhaps helping with whatever needs to be done, but you want a few more revs to be putting a bit more power through the alternator. Now I have a button here that when I press it says to activate automatic high beam, switch headlights to high beam. So that means I have to have them on not auto but on headlights. With the button on it won't have headlights because I guess I'm in fairly light conditions. But if I turn that off, the adjustment, then because I've put it on high beam, it'll stay on high beam. On the left is the typical windscreen wipers, and like most windscreen wipers they're rather noisy, thump thump thump. You can adjust the intermittent nature of them as you would expect. Now this little screen here has limited information on it. In fact, I try to go to home and it seems like I thought that was just the one for Bluetooth. Apparently the home there, I have a Bluetooth as a choice or a radio as a choice. I can press that and go into telephone. But as soon as I got into radio, it's given me volume, which I don't like. I prefer to make my choice rather than have to turn it down or turn it off. Tap the button to dial the number or long tap it to delete the number. I've got AM, FM and FM2, so I don't have digital radio. I can plug in a USB or an iPod. And I think I can connect up for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Now, okay, my camera device disconnected. So if I go home, it's got that my phone connected, but the Android Auto button isn't working. Okay, I don't understand it. Please enable Android Auto and plug in your phone to launch this feature. Okay, so this old one here of the USB might be to do that. But I could have sworn that I actually had it working without a cable. Why it's different, I do not know. So let's go for initial quick drive, a 5-speed gearbox, 5 forward speeds and 1 reverse, of course. Now, we don't have any warnings with the backing, and this screen is not clear at all. It's a very fuzzy screen. Makes me want to get out and clean the camera, but I'm not sure that that's going to help a lot. I think it has a fundamental simplicity about it, low performance, which doesn't help. Now, it's not a bad turning circle once you wind it on. It's a 5-speed gearbox. It's got a heavy-duty clutch, but while it may do its job in a very solid way, it's not too heavy to push, and that's okay, because the old football injury can wear out or tire out my left knee. I do find that if I'm in an urban area driving a manual around, one does tend to hold in a gear longer, simply to save the wear and tear of a somewhat tired left knee. Even can get to the point where you start changing without using the clutch. It has been strongly condemned for its dynamics. It's a big, tall car built for off-road. It's not going to be a great handler. But I do say, and one of our drivers took it around where they have been most of their recent living, went over things like the railway level crossing, and thought that you could hear the bumps, you could feel them a little bit. They thought it actually handled it better than most. I think that might have a lot to do with the high-profile tyres, which I've got to say is not a bad idea. Now, okay, it is low geared and it makes a bit of noise. But then when you get into fourth, it's a bit more longer legs. In fact, I will stay in fourth until I get to 80 kilometres an hour. But at 80 kilometres an hour, I do find that the speedo is rather hard to pick when you're right on 80 or just above it. In fact, I thought I was just above it. It's got rather a wide pointer. It turned out I was doing nearer to 90. So you get used to that. I found that I drove this along a motorway, an area where you might think that is its least favourite. But it doesn't have real chunky tyres. And you know, it was in a peak period. There was road work, so we were doing 80k. So I did feel a little bit like the old farmer pottering along in his Land Rover. But it was rather nice because there was enough traffic for people not to get frantic to overtake one car. It was quite obvious they weren't going to get much further if they did that. I found it actually not bad. And one of the things about the noise, I found unexpected, that as you got up to, and we did do the 110 on a motorway, it wasn't such an increase. There was an increase in sound, a bit of wind noise became more prominent too, but it wasn't as sharp as some cars can be. Seems to me, and perhaps it's more low profile tyres that do it.
Have your own thoughts? We'd love to hear them, good, bad, or in between. Have a chat with us by dropping a comment below.